Hello, fellow cat enthusiasts. Today, I'll be talking about various ways to get your cat to lose weight and track the weight loss, even in a multi-cat household. My name is Dr. Kara Caldwell, and I have been a cat-only veterinarian since 2011 in the state of Connecticut, as well as a cat owner for many, many years. Let me introduce Petey, one of my patients for many years who has trouble with losing weight and keeping it off. He's a handsome 14-ish-year-old cat that was adopted as a young adult from a shelter. He was treated for a terrible and painful eye condition when I met him, and he ended up losing his eye. After he was treated, he started to gain weight since he was finally more comfortable. We suspect he also may have had some level of trauma since he also developed a limp over time. We will be using Petey as an example going forward. Let's start with the basics. Not every cat is meant to be 10 pounds. A 10-pound Maine Coon would potentially be very skinny, while a 10-pound Munchkin would be obese. For this reason, rather than tracking weight directly, we use a measurement called body condition score. Body condition scores work similarly to the body mass index in people, and it takes into account the skeletal or body size of your cat when determining if your cat is overweight, underweight, or just right. Determining your cat's body condition score can be on a 5-point scale or a 9-point scale. We will be discussing the 9-point scale today, as it has more nuances, and there is little difference between the two scales other than the numbers that are assigned. On a 9-point scale, 5 is usually considered ideal and is delineated 5 out of 9. Here, we have the chart with all the different depictions of cats. My cats are considered a 5 out of 9, and I'll show you why. When assessing body condition scores, it is important to get your hands on your cat, as having a full, fluffy fur can make your cat look bigger than they really are, or having a prominent cat udder, medical term for the primordial pouch, can make your assessment inaccurate. It is also important to use a standing position when evaluating them, as when they are in loaf position or curled up, it can give them the appearance of fat rolls. A score of 5 is awarded to cats with a slight waist around the ribs, palpable ribs with some fat overlying them, and a minimal abdominal fat pad. To demonstrate what the ribs are supposed to feel like, stretch your hand fully out and feel the pad below your fingers, and then feel your cat's ribs with the same amount of pressure. They should feel similar for a score of 5 out of 9. For the abdominal fat pad, find the end of your cat's ribs at the belly and follow it backwards to the pelvis. There should be a small amount of fat. Many cats will develop a prominent primordial pouch post-spay or neuter, and that should not be included in your assessment. The fat contained within a primordial pouch is typically very soft and difficult to distinguish from skin, versus fat that is due to obesity and feels firmer. If you have any question what you think your cat's body condition score is, ask your vet. It is a typical part of every exam, even if they don't tell you the actual number out loud. Another good skill to learn is how to determine how much to feed your cat based on their metabolism. Again, like people, every cat's metabolism is different, so we use the equation we're about to discuss as a starting point and then adjust as needed. Safe weight loss in a cat is roughly 0.5 to 1% of body weight per week, or 0.4 pounds for a 10-pound cat per month, for example. Alright, some nerdy math time. Let's do some calculations. First, we want to calculate resting energy requirement, or RER. This is the base amount of calories needed for your cat to maintain normal bodily function. RER equals 70 times your cat's body weight in kilogram raised to the 0.75 power. To get to body weight from pounds to kilograms, you're going to divide the weight in pounds by 2.2. To raise to a 0.75 using your phone, if you have an iPhone, flip it to landscape mode or on its side with the calculator open, and it should reveal an X raised to the Y symbol. You may have to select scientific calculator instead. Once you type in the cat's weight in kilograms, click the X to the Y button, and then type in 0.75 and equals, and that will give you the cat's body weight in kilograms raised to 0.75 that you would then multiply by 70 to get their calories for the day. For example, 10 pounds divided by 2.2 comes up with 4.54 kilograms. So you're going to type in 4.54, hit the X to the Y button, and then type in 0.75, hit equals, and multiply that number by 70. You should get 217 kilocalories. When you're using this equation for kittens, use their current body weight, not their expected body weight. But wait, there's more to this calculation. Now that we know the base number of calories for that size cat, we need to factor in their life stage and their activity level using a table. So based on this table that I have up on the screen now, an adult cat that is not spayed would need 217 calories multiplied by 1.4 to get their calories for the day. Once that same cat is spayed, their metabolism drops, and then they would need that calorie amount that we calculated, the resting energy requirement, so 217 multiplied by 1.2 instead of that 1.4. Of course, this assumes that that cat is the appropriate weight. If your cat needs to lose weight, you would actually multiply the resting energy requirement by 0.8. If your cat is obese prone, such as a cat who lost weight and now just needs to maintain their weight, you would go somewhere between their calculated spayed level and their weight loss level and use a factor of 1 in your multiplication. I'll put a link in the description to my website with the calculations and the metabolism chart for your reference. Never reduce your cat's calories by more than 15 to 20% per month without the supervision of a veterinarian. Reducing calories too fast can lead to a life-threatening condition called fatty liver disease. Gradual is the way to go. So if you're currently realizing that you're feeding 400 calories per day to your cat, and this calculator tells you to cut down to 260, don't just cut down to 260 right away. Instead, cut down 20% per month until you get to that 260 and then stay there and monitor weight loss very closely. Petey's body condition score, for example, is currently an 8 out of 9, and he is about 17 pounds. So let's calculate his calorie requirements. So for him, we would do 17 divided by 2.2 to get to kilograms, multiply that number by 0.75, and then multiply that by 70. Based on that, we're getting a resting energy requirement for Petey of 324 kilocalories per day. Petey needs to lose weight, so we're going to multiply that number by 0.8, which comes out to 260 calories per day. So we're going to feed him the appropriate amount to get to this calorie count using a measuring cup or a kitchen scale. So now that we know the basics of how to get to that number, let's talk about cats like Petey who need to lose weight. Petey is a cat with a limp. His limp is more exacerbated with his heavier weight due to increased strain on his joints. Other things overweight cats that are more prone to is diabetes, having trouble grooming, urinary tract infections, and urinary crystals. Some cats that are only mildly overweight may develop arthritis earlier than those with a normal body condition score due to jumping up and down off things. Being overweight has also been linked to breathing issues, heart disease, cancers, as well as increased risk of anesthetic complications. For Petey, you can see his fur is mildly clumpy, not matted but disheveled. Petey has trouble grooming himself everywhere due to this combination of arthritis and obesity leading to that appearance. If your cat has fur that looks similar, ask your vet about things you can do to help, as it can indicate underlying conditions that cats are good at hiding. Weight loss in cats means reducing calories or increasing exercise or some combination of both. Using the equation we talked about, we have a start point for where to reduce his calories to. But again, this equation is just a start. Some cats have slower metabolisms and may need even less calories. If you find yourself giving your cat less than 180 calories per day and they are still not losing weight, please talk to your vet before restricting further. Over-the-counter diets are not necessarily designed for weight loss, and to get to the lower calorie counts, you end up feeding a very small volume of food, which can lead your cat to being overly hungry, as well as lacking in vitamins and minerals. Speaking of over-the-counter diets, they may be labeled as weight loss, light or low calorie, but many of these terms are not regulated, and the brand may be only referring to their other diets. For example, if brand X's normal diet is 600 calories per cup, they may also have another diet labeled as less calorie, but it still has 400 calories per cup in it, whereas diet brand Y has a normal diet of 400 calories per cup, and their lower calorie diet is 250 calories per cup. So it's very important to read the labels on the pet foods. Please subscribe so you don't miss my other videos going into more depth on pet food labels. Generally speaking, wet foods are more conducive to weight loss than dry foods due to their higher protein content and high moisture content, leading to cats feeling fuller faster. Reaching for lower calorie per cup dry foods can be helpful due to them being able to feed more volume with lower calories to keep your kitty feeling satisfied. Prescription weight loss diets are available and are formulated to help your cat lose weight and still feel full if you find your kitty is not improving with over-the-counter diet adjustments alone. For Petey, when he was younger and moving around more, it was easier for him to maintain a lower weight. Now that he is a senior, we have had to try switching him to a prescription diet. We also need to restrict his diet and start meal feeding him so he does not overeat. Meal feeding Petey is relatively easy as he's an only pet in his household. However, there are options for people in a multi-cat household. One of my favorite options is using a SureFeed feeder. The SureFeed feeder can be programmed to open for one or multiple cats in a household based on an RFID tag or their microchip. You can then feed each cat separately, or if you are lucky and you have a cat that you can leave food out for all the time and they don't gain weight, you can feed them in the SureFeed and leave out the obese cat's food. Another option is to have mandated feeding times. Starting meal feeding young is a good strategy so your cat is used to it, whether they need to lose weight or not. With this strategy, you put out a measured amount of food for 20 to 30 minutes, feeding cats in separate rooms to prevent food stealing if you need to, and then pick up what is left. If you do choose to feed this way, I recommend feeding at least 3 meals per day to better mimic their natural feeding habits, which is generally many smaller meals. If you do not have the time to do this, you can use a timed feeder. However, it is best still to monitor access to the food so one cat is not eating more than their share. A more do-it-yourself option is to get a tote box, cut a hole in it that's large enough for your smaller cat to fit into, that your obese cat cannot fit into, and to feed your skinny cat in there. Make sure the hole is not sharp and the tote is weighted down so your obese cat cannot break into it. Alternatively, you can put a cat door that can read RFID tags or microchips into the tote box if your cats are too similar in size. This way you can leave food out all the time rather than having to meal feed and separate them into rooms. If your cat loves to con multiple people in the family into feeding them by acting like they are dying of hunger when they are already fed, there are ways to try to get around that. One method is to put their daily allotted food into separate containers. So a container for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. And when it's gone, you know that they were fed for the day. Another method is to get a flip magnet that you mark off when you have fed the cat. I'll put an option of that linked in the description. And yet another option is to have one designated feeder in the family for the week, the day, or that's their forever chore. That way that person always knows if the cat is fed because they're the only one doing it. Exercise is another great way to bond with your cat, stimulate and improve their mental health, as well as help with weight loss. You want to have your cat exercise for at least 15 minutes 3 times per day or until they are tired, whichever comes first. For overweight cats that are not used to exercising, do not expect crazy jumps or fast sprints. Even just reaching for a toy like a lazy bump on a log will still spend some calories. One way you can try to get your exercise-phobic cat to move is to place their food away from them and make them walk to it. Some people put their dry food portion in a treat ball or throw it piece by piece until it is done so that their cat has to move around to get to it. Food puzzles are also great use for mental stimulation, but they will spend a small amount of calories. To monitor weight loss, keep checking your cat's weight and body condition score. Remember, safe weight loss is about 1% per week. So do purchase a scale and keep a chart. I will link an example chart in the description below, along with links to a few scales. Flat scales will not tip and can be less scary for cats that move around on them, but ones with edges can feel more safe. You can put a cat bed on most scales and zero or tear it out to make sure that the scale is more comfortable for them. Okay. So let's come up with a plan for Petey together that will fit his lifestyle and the owner's lifestyle so it's manageable for everybody. To review, Petey is a 14-year-old male neutered cat with arthritis and a body condition score of 8 out of 9 at 17 pounds. His maximum safe weight loss per month is about 0.7 pounds, or 1% per week for 4 weeks. We will need to adjust this number as he loses weight. His calorie requirement per day for weight loss is 70 times 17 divided by 2.2 raised to the 0.75 power, or 324 calories. Adjusting this for weight loss brings us to 260 calories. We weigh Petey weekly to make sure he is not losing weight too fast. If he still is not losing weight, we're going to reduce his calories by 20% every 2 weeks until he does, or until we are at 180 calories. And then we're going to seek the help of our vet if we're still struggling. Petey currently eats mostly dry and will sometimes eat wet, but does not prefer it. For this reason, we are offering 1/4 can wet and prescription weight loss dry food to get to the 260 calories per day. 1 can of Petey's food is 120 calories per can. So 1/4 can equals 30 calories. We get to that by multiplying 0.25 to represent the 1/4 by the 120 calories for the whole can. We want to start with 260 calories total per day. So we're going to subtract the 30 calories of wet from the 260 total to get our goal calories in dry food, which is 230. Petey's dry food is 360 calories per cup. So to calculate the amount of food to feed him in dry food, we are going to divide 230, which is the amount of calories that we want to feed in dry, by 360, which is the amount of calories in a full cup, and that's going to bring us to 0.64 cups, or just under 2/3 of a cup of dry per day. Rather than pre-measuring his food into containers, his dad is going to be the designated feeder. Petey is not very food motivated, so throwing his food or food puzzles do not work for him. He generally thinks toys are quite boring as well. Instead, he enjoys walking in the yard and being by his owner's side. So we are going to recommend walking around the house with Petey for 15 minutes a few times per day, or until he stops himself. We're also going to address his arthritis with fish oils, polysulfated aminoglycans injections, and glucosamine supplements, along with pain medications as needed to help keep him moving comfortably. Today, hopefully you learned some helpful tips and tricks to get your cat to lose weight, even if they are in a house with multiple pets. Weight loss is hard, no matter what species you are, and it requires dedication. Do not be discouraged, and keep finessing how you are doing things, and reach out to your vet for help. Tell me your helpful weight loss tips in the comments, and like and subscribe to stay tuned for all my future videos.